Today I'm here to show you how I built this farm stand for free, mostly, because I'm assuming that most of you have access to basic tools, power tools, even a handsaw or nails, because other than that, I didn't pay for a single thing on this farm stand. Now before we go into actual materials, there's a lot here. I want to show you the farm stand, showcase it a little bit, show you some design elements that we really wanted to implement, and then also show you the material I got and how I got them. There's a few elements of this build that we really wanted to make sure that we could implement. One of the main features that we really needed was a long extended roof because it rains a lot where we live, and we needed to make sure that people could stand underneath it and not get rained on. You might be able to see from where I'm standing right here. I'm right next to the edge of the farm stand where you would stand to pick up or buy your goods. And then the roof line is pretty far extended because it does rain here a lot. And there have been times when I was making egg sales and I had to meet them down here at my front gate. And when I was here, it was pouring down rain. They didn't care, but I didn't want to have them to go through it anymore. So I made sure that this really long extended roof was here so that I can chat with them or stand here. Rain, snow, sun, it didn't matter, we'd be out of the elements. So another thing that was pretty crucial to us is pickup orders, not just sales, because most of the sales right here, we don't live off of a main road. Almost everything isn't really coming strictly from up here. This is just an add-on to anything that's going on for pickups a lot of the time. Or just drive-bys can do this one too. But in here, I'm gonna cover this up and put shelving so that if there are pickup orders or I have to write their names on them, they can come in here, pick up their orders and go. And this will be enclosed so nobody gets confused that this is for them to buy, but it's only for pickup orders. The other thing that we needed was room for a small fridge or for a cooler. We ended up finding a really cheap small fridge, so this actually is not free. I did pay for this one, but I already had the cooler that I was gonna put here. So let's just take that out of the cost because you could put a cooler here. But as a design element, I needed to make sure that this spot was open just in case I did add a fridge or my cooler to this thing. And then one of the main features that I actually needed to add, because this thing is pretty heavy, is some way to be able to pick it up, bring it down here, and then maybe move it back up or move it to a different place that I think is better. It needed to be mobile, and I didn't put wheels on it. So I put a spot, which I'll get into with materials, a spot for my tractor to pick it up and move it. And that's actually how I moved it down here into place. And I'm really glad that I thought this through in this end because I didn't build it in location. I actually moved it here. I have a flatter spot that I built it on concrete and then moved it. So if I want to move it to a different part or across the street or anywhere else, I can. So now let's talk about the material it's built out of and how I sourced all of this for free. So this is a bit of a tight fit, but this is the back of it. And this is where I could show you, which you could imagine, a lot of this is actually made out of pallets. That's not all of it though, because I didn't just want to go through a pallet look. Although the pallet look could look pretty cool, I didn't want to stick strictly to a pallet look when it came to our farm stand. I wanted it to have a little bit more character. I didn't want to make it look like I was building it quickly out of pallets, and sometimes pallet work is a lot more because you have to separate all of the different pieces. It meant a lot to me that this didn't just look good for ourselves or our customers, but also our neighbors that have to drive past it every day. And one of the design elements I actually forgot to show you is that I put a really long roofing on the back so that I could use this back area for storage or anything else because it's hidden, and so that way I could put anything here or have power cords back here and I could still access it and it was still out of the rain. So obviously there are pallets in here, but the other thing, which I think was a great idea and I think any of you can do, is an old fence. I found somebody online looking to get rid of their old fencing because they put in a new fence. So we took in all of their old fencing material. It didn't look this nice. It was actually really run down and it had lichen and everything all over it. So I pressure washed it. And then I used those fence posts in order to build out this whole thing. This is actually what it looked like when I got all of the wood delivered. Thrown here on a pile, some of it was rotten on the bottom, so I cut all of that off, and then I pressure washed everything. And then I didn't even waste time cutting a lot of these 2x4 pieces off, but I do have them so that I can reuse them later. But I just cut straight here, and then I used everything on that farm stand. So I used them for so many different parts of this build. Obviously the side paneling that you see here, but I used it for all of the little detailed paneling also. I used it in this spot up at the top to cover the wood. I used it on the sides. I used it on the front face right here, which I used to cover the 2x4 that I took off of one of the pallets. I used them on the front face right here, which I again used to cover the 2x4 that I took from, actually, that's not a 2x4. That's more fencing here because I didn't have a 2x4 long enough from the pallets. So what I did is I actually just screwed a few of them together, ran the entire distance, making them a little bit thicker. And then I had one long enough to fill this whole area. And then I covered another panel on the outside to give it the finished look it has here. One of the little design elements that I wanted to add was right here, right in the front face, is to add a little bit of a notch, a little bit of a triangle notch. And I did it on both sides. And that is just to nod at the fact that these are actual fence posts and use those cornered edges like this into the design itself. Another little touch that I was able to do is take those fence boards and actually make these boxes out of them. Somebody driving by asked me if I was able to find these from an antique store, but I built them myself right here, just out of the fence posts. So totally free, straight from the fence posts. And I even added these inside removable boards so that depending on whatever's sitting in here, it can either look more full, less full, or even have different spots for different fruit or whatever's going in here. Literally whatever's going in here, it's modular. Pretty cool. Now this is pretty cool. You can actually see right here, this notch out. This comes from the actual pallets. So this part right here is notched out so that the forks can go underneath the pallets and still pick everything up. So you can still see the remnants of the actual pallets that I used. This one was a very long pallet because I knew I needed the height for this front end. So I needed to make sure that I got a really long pallet, put it in the front, and then also I think I cut that in half and then used that for the taller part in the back also. The reason why I used the pallet in the back was, for one, I needed to make sure that I could put my forks through here and then pick everything up and it would be sturdy and safe. But number two, I also didn't want to waste a bunch of the material from the wood fencing itself, so I filled this in. But now I know I do have enough fencing material, so I'm going to cover in the back just to keep anything out, especially once I get this front end on and I can have the pickup orders for my customers down here. Let's even talk about some of the design elements. I probably wouldn't have added these, but a neighbor brought me these and, well, I get to use them perfectly fine. And so I didn't spend any money on these. Our farm sign, this is a printout, so I guess we did spend money on ink, but this is a printout. And I have a small household laminator, so we laminated it so that wind, rain, elements don't really mess with it. So here's our little farm stand sign, and it works perfectly fine. One of the things I like a lot is that I was able to use those fence boards to make this little shelf here, and I may even add another shelf in the back somewhere so that I could stack up a few more eggs or whatever else. Hopefully you're not able to just find this as a useful, free farm stand build, but also inspirational, knowing that you could do it too. You could build one of these out, start selling your eggs from your property as long as your state and area allows you to, based off of cottage laws and whatever else, because every state is annoying and trying to figure out all these things. Some states are more friendly than others. I just have to say that for the people that aren't actually in the states that they can do this. But I'm also going to release another video about the top 5 things. And so when that video comes out, it'll be right here for you to watch. And it's the key things that I think that you should also add to your farm stand, not just aesthetically, but also practically. Also, just want to throw a little praise to my wife real quick. Look at these loaves. They are awesome. And I am so glad that I get them from home all the time. If you want to see a video about how we make those, let me know. They are so good. And you know, I might be biased here, but probably the best homemade sourdough loaves I've ever tasted.